Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cloud Architects podcast. If you're here for the ever smooth Nicholas Blank or the antics of Warren DeToy, unfortunately today you're stuck with me and only me, and of course our awesome guest. But yeah, flying solo today. The other two had some commitments that come up at the last minute, and we're still very excited to talk to Sly. I mean, we've been wanting to put this together for a little while. I think we ran into some sort of Thanksgiving holiday time late last year when we were trying to schedule this, and then I moved, and life gets in the way. So Sly, really happy to have you eventually and come on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to give us give the listener a quick kind of introduction for who you are, what you do? Because you're kind of a dual threat, right? You have this awesome day job that you do, but then you also have the side project, which is also super fascinating. So tell us about it.
Oh yeah. So first of all, I want to say thank you, Chris, Nick, and what was the other gentleman's name? I got to make sure I get his name right. Warren. So thank y'all for having me on the podcast, right? So this is definitely an honor for me, and I'm excited. And I worked with you, Chris, in the past, so it's always been a breath of fresh air. And for the listeners who don't know me, right, my name is Sly Gittens. My day job, I work at Microsoft as a partner technology strategist, helping some of the largest partners at Microsoft, right? They're global partners, helping to build their strategy and repeatable businesses. And I do that from a technology perspective, right? But I also have to bridge the business gap. So I'm talking to CISOs, CEOs, and figuring out how to build a repeatable businesses, tech alliances managers. So it's a blend of both of my skills, right? I went to college at University of Buffalo for business, but tech and marketing, right? So I get to do both in my day job, which is pretty awesome. And then what I do outside of my side job, and not even a job, more a hobby, not even a hobby, it's just something I love to do. Right, it's called Tech Simplified, right? And this spawned it out of the ability is that I was tired of going to training and falling asleep, right? And how many times, if you're in tech or any type of discipline, even in school, right? When I was in university or in college, right? I used to like, man, why don't they make this exciting, right? Why don't we try to, put it in? I used to do a lot of poetry, slam poetry. So I try to bring that element into the way I do presentations. So I just started this going off, doing cybersecurity, like simple things, and just making it easier for the everyday person to understand. So that's something I still do to this day, right? So I might do Microsoft security trainings. I might talk about maybe soft skills and being a tech and having those and developing those. And then something else that is near and dear to me is I started a women tech series underneath my Tech Simplified brand. And just because 2.5 years ago, my daughter came into my life and changed everything. The way I started asking myself different questions. And I said, how can I make the world a little bit better than it is today? And what skills can I bring to help and be an ally to the women cause, right? Because women don't need men. They don't need my show, a series. I'm just there to amplify the voices that they already have, right? So I end up doing that. And that's something that is, my daughter sees me. Like most of the time she's next to me, right? Like usually right now. And she's watching me make the video. She's interacting. She's talking. She's seeing it. My wife sees it. And then the cool thing about this, and I'll stop there, is my family originated from Barbados. Some people don't know where Barbados is. That's in the Caribbean islands. And we moved to Brooklyn. So my family in Barbados calls me and say, I'm inspired, Sly. I want to get into tech now, because then when they come see the women in tech and they get psyched up, they go look at the training. Like, hey, Sly, where do I start? And that is the beauty of having it on there, is that cross-pollination, because I don't know about in Australia, but I know in the US it's a big push to get more women in tech. And the one thing I also noticed that only 1% of women in the US who, like families who have daughters, go into engineering. Right. And my daughter, I want to make, she can definitely, if she decides to go there, she'll know, exist. Cause I already read engineering books for 1, 2, 3. We got cybersecurity books. We got like blue teams, red teams, like these little kid books that people have created that I share with her now. I say that to say is that, I want to just help a little, I want to be a part of the change, be an ally to that as well. So those tech, I've been doing it my whole life since I was 8, building computers back on Windows 95, gateway computers back in the days, just fixing it, trying to mess with it, and then, so that's just a passion for me, so that's the long-winded story about myself.
No, that's awesome though, because I think to me, that passion really shines through, right? And we love to talk about talk to passionate people on this show. It's, a lot of times when we're kind of planning out our episodes and the recordings we're going to do, there are a couple of things we want to try and hit, right? We like obviously tech and technology, and sometimes we like to geek out as deep as we can. And occasionally we get guests like that where we can just go really deep into a technical issue, and kind of unpack that type of stuff. But we also like to talk about to the people, right? The people using the technologies, why they do it, why they're passionate about it. And so, that passion shines through. We, as you alluded, we kind of met in the sort of professional kind of work environment, right? Working with customers and Microsoft. But, it became very evident to me very quickly that you have this passion for teaching and helping, and it's great. So that's why, really, really sort of psyched to be talking to you. And I think everyone is going to be able to see and feel that come through when they listen to this episode. So you touched on some, I think, really important points sort of in your introduction there, right? And I want to get to the women in tech stuff, and I think we'll get to that in a sec, because I think that's important as well. We're talking about we actually episode 60 of this podcast, we spoke to a really, really inspiring young lady called Kexin Yi. Actually, it published today, and it was just such a great story. But we'll get to that one in a sec. What I wanted to talk a little bit more about the learning, right? Because I feel like the way learning in the tech space has evolved over the 20 years that I've been in the industry, certainly things have changed quite a lot, right? And we've seen, like, Microsoft have obviously changed the way that they look at certifications and the way they test certifications. And I think the industry as a whole has changed in its perception as far as certifications go. What's your take on certifications? I mean, are they still worthwhile today? Can you go and learn something and not be certified in that thing and still apply it in the workplace? Or do you think it's massively overrated to get the latest Microsoft cert when you're kind of coming up in the industry?
It just depends, right? So I can give you I'm gonna give you the perspective of myself coming from college and myself today, because those are two different conversations. Like, that's how I like to break it down. So I spoke to some of the students at the University of Buffalo, and they asked a similar question, right? Should I get my certifications? I'm like, you got the time, you might as well do it, right? But just know certifications aren't the only thing that's going to get you the job. So don't be upset if you go to the job and say, I have 5 certifications, and then you get picked by someone else. Experience matters, right? So when I look at certifications, I look at it from a business standpoint. Why would a business want to hire you because of the certification? When you look at the numbers, at least in the US, I can pay Sylvester or Sly more because he has an Azure administrator certification 101, a 104, and also if he has an expert at Azure administrator, and especially if he has AZ 500 security, you know what? I know Sly should be able to do this, right? So I can outsource that and pay more for him. So of course I'm going to pay him a little bit more. So I use certifications as a negotiation tip, because that could be something that separates me from you. But now what if the tables are stacked and we're similar? We're very similar on paper. We're fresh out of college, and I have certifications. You don't, I'll probably get the job. But now let's say if we both got 4 years in the industry, we both have certifications. What's next? What else are you gonna do? You fit that culture, right? Because certifications won't get you over that hump, right? And then certifications also don't. One thing I found is you also had to have networking. Who do you know, right? Because I got friends that have 15 certifications, but they still stuck in entry-level jobs because they didn't know anyone to get there, or they didn't have the soft skills ready, right? So I think it's a combination, and it also depends where you sit in that from the role you're doing. For me, I'm usually in system engineer, sales engineering roles, consultant roles, where soft skills and technical skills are necessary. So I got a lot of friends that are way more technical than me, and that's fine. I know that's not my area. You ain't gonna call me to go 10 layers deep. I'm not the tech for that, right? I might go 5 to 6 layers deep, but I understand the business benefits, and I can also talk to the customer, and then I know who to bring in who can go to other layers deep. So to answer your question and sum it back up, is in the beginning of your career, I say get certifications to be a differentiator. And then also use that to get you a job that will give you the experience that will complement your certifications. And that even works as you get more experience, because I found when you get more experience, sometimes the certifications don't help. But what I use it for is saying, hey, I already got these certifications. So even when I came into Microsoft, I already had the AZ900, the MS900, the MS500. I was taking the AZ700. I took the AI 900. I took all the ones that I could, because those were check boxes for when I got there. I'm like, you don't got to worry about that with me. I don't need to have that conversation. I already know how to do that. So I was able to get more money, right? So I use that as a way for a bargaining chip, saying, hey, you don't need to train me for that. Other people need to train. You don't need to train me for those things. But this is the experience I have. This is the direct the direct industry experience I have. And these are also differentiator features there as well. So hopefully that answered the question.
No, definitely it does. And I think, for me, you summarize it really well, because I think certainly in the beginning of your career, it's important to be able to differentiate yourself from everyone else, right? Now, I know there's a lot of the industry is kind of making a noise about not necessarily hiring or favoring folks with certifications, and that certifications don't necessarily mean that someone knows what they're doing. And I 100% agree with that. You shouldn't be held on that as well. But I think for a lot of people, certification is a really good way to learn, right? Because it's a structured approach to learning a topic. Some people can easily just go and play with whatever technology, and go play with Kubernetes, and they'll figure it out, and they'll learn it that way. A lot of other folks really need a little bit of a structure into the way they learn. They need it fed to them in a way that makes sense, and that sort of takes the sort of crawl, walk, run approach to that topic, right? And I think a certification program is a really good way for those types of folks, right? So I think it's good to kind of look at how you learn and what you learn before just going, well, if you don't have the certification, you're never going to succeed in the industry, right? It's an interesting kind of topic. I've always personally I like them because it works with the way I like to learn. Gives me a little bit of kind of being able to play with some stuff oftentimes. So yeah, good approach. I think that's some really good advice there, right? It's never going to replace experience, but it certainly is a good differentiator when you're sort of coming up and in the sort of early part of your career.
And then you mentioned one thing, structured learning. When you first starting off, most people don't know where to start. So an AZ900 is a good structured way to get started and excited. One thing that I find that, is I meet people who have way more certifications than I do, but then I tell them this, create me a DLP policy. They don't know how. Like, you took all the certifications, how can you can't create it? Because they never applied the knowledge, right? Some people are good test takers. Unfortunately, I've never been the best test taker, but I'm always good at applying the knowledge I have. So when I look at certifications, I just change the way I look at it. I'm not looking to pass the test, which you need to do. I'm looking, how can I apply the knowledge? If I won't take a certification, that I can't apply the knowledge because I won't remember it. And then even certain things I took before. I took the AZ500 certification a couple of years ago. I think I failed it by like 3 or 4 points or something like that, right? So I need to learn more. But I can still deploy a lot of things already, right? And I know for my job, I didn't need it. I just did it because I wanted to take it. Azure was an area where I didn't have that much experience. I'm more M365. And I realized I should have took the AZ104 because I didn't know how to do certain stuff in the AZ104. So let me go back and do that, right? And then come back here. And that's okay, right? So I just realized now, and that goes for all learning. Like when I'm reading books at home, I figure out how can I apply it. Like I bought homes here. I'm reading more landlord books. I'm reading Understand the Laws because I can then take that information and apply it. And I know some industries is not as, you can't apply things as fast. It might be more theoretical. But I feel like if you're in any hands-on role, like application is key, because I used to do Cisco. I used to be an RSA engineer. I used to have my VMware 5. If you tell me to go into a new VMware environment now, I have no idea. I got the certification. It's old now, right? So one thing I find, I think you might be seeing in industry, especially in cloud, it changes so fast. So even if I gave you a video on how to pass AZ900, I got to go update it because everything I said is obsolete because it's no longer there anymore. So I think certification is a good way to give you that guided knowledge, and then you can build onto it. Because I realized what I found myself doing early in my career is I take the certification, then I relax. Then I don't keep building on, and there's a gap. Because like Chris is like, didn't you take that last year? You should already know this. I'm like, well, I didn't go any further. I just stopped at the certification. I think just take that as a way to get started is never the end game, because I realize it's just an infinite game, right? It's always going to be more knowledge for us to learn. And that's the fun thing about technology, and also the scary thing about technology. You can become a dinosaur in a year, and depending on what you're doing. So.
And it's never been more true than it is today, right? At least back in the good old days, as I call them, you could become a dinosaur in 4 years, right? But today, I mean, literally, it could be 3 months and your knowledge is out of date. So, but I also think it's never been easier to get hands-on than it is today, right? You can spin up a trial tenant or a test tenant, pretty quickly and apply what you're learning in the certification in that environment to get that level of hands-on experience. Whereas before, I remember, when I was doing Exchange Master, the amount of hardware that I needed in my basement to just learn, right, and build out all these really complex environments, it was very time consuming. It was expensive to maintain, power and all this hardware and stuff. And I actually still have some, when I moved back to Australia from Texas, and the moving company came to clear out my storage locker, there was like all these, it's like a rack there with like these old servers in it that was just it's been sitting there gathering dust for, a good few years. And they were like, well, what are we doing with this? I was like, I don't really know, because what can I do with this thing? I mean, it's, I can't, these servers are not worth the postage, right, anymore. But, so I was like, I may as well just pack it up. so they'll get here at some point. I'll have an interesting paperweight of some sort to do with. But
I know how that feels. I had a DL385 back in the day. And I just remember my bill coming home because I wanted to learn how to do VMware bare metal installations. And then I realized after the bill came in, my cat started sleeping on it because it was so dang warm, man. Because I'm like, man, I can't keep this on, man. This is killing my bills.
And when those fans kick in, and you're trying to, very loud. I used to have one under my under the sort of the understairs closet is where I used to store my DL380s. And I know, my wife called me many times where, I'd be out of town working with a customer, and I'd be remotely connected to something and I reboot the server. And then my wife would call me. She'd be like, there's a jet plane noise coming from under the stairs. Should I be worried? No. Those are just the server fans. Don't worry about it so much. So we've all been there, but it's easier today, right? You spin up the tenant, get the hands on. Don't just rely on the certs. A point you made, and something I noticed when I had a look at your YouTube channel as well, is you're not only kind of doing content to teach people the tech, right? You talked about soft skills before, and I think that's super important, because the soft skill part of the jobs we do, I think, is almost more important than the technology, right? And because you can learn the technology, like you can play with it, you can get familiarize yourself with it, but to have that ability to relate to the business and to relate to your customer is really important. And so I think, when I look at some of the content that you've created around soft skills and promotions and how to promote yourself and that type of stuff, I think that's really awesome, because I think it's a really good place for folks to go, not only to learn how to create DLP policies, but also to go learn how do you have these types of conversations with customers where they understand why a DL policy is important. So I think that's really cool, because again, people learn differently. And I think that's those soft skills is great.
And it's different. And I also think one thing I'd like to point out is it's different personalities. People assume I'm extroverted all the time, but I'm not. I usually stay at home. I'm in my office. I do my tech stuff. But when I get around people, then I can talk, right? But I'm not the one that's going to start the conversation most times. I know how to do it, but I don't do it, right? So I also, when I did the content, I thought about myself. I'm like, but then I realized I'm still more outgoing than most techs I run into. So how can someone who says, so I'm never going to have a YouTube channel because that's way too out in the open. You don't need a YouTube channel, right? There's just the simple things you can say, right? In terms of like this empathy, right? And this one thing I found is I don't know if you do that out here in Australia, there's like the Gallup 2.0 Clifton Strengths. It's not a personality, it's more of a strength finder. It tells you where your strengths is at, right? For me, it was strategy, number one, being collaborative, and also like it's like competition and certain things there. You see influencing all the way at the bottom, right? It's like close to the end. Empathy also to the bottom. Again, techs usually struggle in empathy. So that's why, I might rub people the wrong way. So what I started doing is once I learned those things, it's like, all right, I might not be the best. Like my wife is number one thing was empathy. So it makes sense why we're together. She can feel more things than I can. So what I started doing was started reading books. I started taking more classes. I started asking more questions. I realized, you know what? I don't really need to talk, right? Because if I can get Chris to talk, he gonna like me more anyway, right? So what questions can I ask to get Chris to talk so then I don't need to talk anymore? Because I found when I end up being the one talking the most, they usually don't have a good experience anyway. So I'm like, let me just, how do I balance the scales a little bit more? And I just started reading a little bit more on those things. So I just found if you don't have to be the sales rep, because I know I'm not. That's why I'm not a sales rep. I tried it before. I did it. I usually in between, right? I can be pretty outgoing, but I'm very techie, right? So, that technical sales role was it's kind of where my play at, my arena. So one thing I would say, just to keep on that same vein is, when you're thinking about your career, take your personality and then also take where do you want to go, right? Because right now you could be an engineer, systems engineer, or hands-on, or service engineer who does all the configurations and limited customer interaction. That's how you start your career, but you might want to become a manager. So then what skills do you need to become a manager? That's the way I looked at everything. Even right now, as a dad, and now also I got side projects, my main projects, properties. That's project management, time management. I'm not that good in those areas. So I had to spend more time and build a team who could help me with those things. So just also envisioning where you want to go. I think that's also a big thing. That's what I try to do on my channel, right? Is that stages of life that I feel like you don't get in most channels. They just stay on tech and that will be it. That's all you should know. But I look at a channel, like a channel you look on your television, right? You have multiple programs in the television. I just look at each thing I talk about as a different program and then different series, because there's different version of our life that we need to develop. Like I'm good in tech, but don't tell me to help you with your taxes, especially Australian taxes. I have no idea how to do that, right? So you got it's so many levels.
Neither do I.
See, so I thought I point that out is because sometimes when I'm talking to, it don't matter where you're at in career, is that it's like I feel like if you're introverted and you start becoming extrovert, you feel like you're not being yourself anymore. But sometimes it just might be growing for another role. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've been finding
it does.
So.
Yeah, I think personal growth is important for everyone, but I think a lot of folks look at personal growth in one dimension, right? They look at it and they go, well, how many technical certs can I pass in order to grow? But I think to be complete, you have to be holistic about your personal growth. You need to look at how do you grow your soft skills? How do you grow your tech side? How do you become more introverted if that's what you want to be, or more extroverted, or more empathetic, or all those types of things? And I think it's really good advice to kind of know yourself, right? Because ultimately, once you know yourself and when you start, really getting to know yourself, that's how you can really grow. So I think that's really good. Speaking of kind of being in the room and talking to people, what are your thoughts on in-person conferences, right? So like the Ignites of the world, which a lot of us, dearly miss in this sort of COVID era that we're in. Do you think conferences will ever come back the way they were, or do you think they're going to change for the better or for worse? What are your thoughts on that?
Predicting the future is never good. So hopefully this age well. I think it won't be the same. I don't think it'll be the same in terms of the capacity. I think it's always going to be a digital element to it that you must have. Like you might have to be on Canva, like live, and you might have to be Facebook streaming or Instagram, LinkedIn Live, right? I think it's going to be another element. But I still, for me, maybe it's just my age, is I miss coming to meet you, right? I miss having that conversation, shaking your hand. It's something you can't get when you're not in the same proximity of that person. You can definitely, we still can do this. These are things we're doing at 2 different continents, right? Across the world, right? That is still the benefit of technology. But I do foresee it coming back, and it's going to look different, right? We might have more restrictions than we had before, right? We might have a little bit more digital elements before. Or I think now is kind of when you're starting to see now, it's a half and half situation. Some people are going to choose now, you know what? I just want to experience the digital pass of Ignite, right? And I don't want to go there. I find I like to go meet the people there and who's else in the community, and then establish a relationship in person. I use social media or these engagements to establish a relationship, but then I go solidify it in person, right? Because now you're like, you know what, Sly, he's a good talking head, but is he really about this life in real life, right? You could kind of feel that out from a person. Or same thing for me. Or when we go out, like some things I can't see from you right now. Difference in food, like your culture, right? Those conversations you don't get in this structured meeting is hard. We can try to talk offline, but you get so many cues just being in a room with a whole different types of people. That's what I miss the most, because that's the one thing I try to do is how can you get diversity of thought, right? You can get that online. You can get that in joining communities, but I find when you're in person, just another element. So to answer your question, I don't think it's going to go back to what it used to be. I think it's going to be a better version, right? I think it's going to be, it's going to be a digital version. It might be even a virtual reality version and a physical version. And it's going to be different ways you can consume it, because ultimately I see that as a business model. I can make money in person, online, and in the virtual world. And that's more money for me. So I see it's going to happen. It's going to change. But to just look at it, I prefer in-person conversations. But I know at this point in my life, I can't go to all the conferences I used to. So for me, having a digital option is great, because I might not be able to go because I'm taking care of my daughter, or I got other responsibilities, or my son that just came, right? So I like the flexibility of it. I think that's one thing that's a pro. And on what thing, I think that answers the question before I go on another tangent. So
yeah, no, you're right. And I think inclusivity is something that a lot of people forget when having this debate, right? Is because me too. I'm a very big fan of the in-person conference, and I find it particularly difficult to focus on when I'm trying to attend something virtually. There's always a distraction. There's always an email or a phone call or something that I need to attend to, and so it never really has my full focus. Whereas when I'm taking a week out to go to Ignite, I'm taking a week out to go to Ignite, right? It's just it's not the same. But someone it was on one of our episodes about this, and it may actually be Anna Chu from Microsoft, kind of made the point that with the remote option, we're now including a bunch of folks who previously may never have been able to attend these conferences, right? Perhaps for economic reasons, perhaps they have anxiety, perhaps they're not good in crowds, or they can't travel for reasons, they have kids or whatever. And so being able to give them the option to attend and be included in this is an amazing thing, and it's a great benefit that's actually come from this, right? The fact that we've now been able to figure out how we can scale such an event of that magnitude to be able to include folks in a remote setting, I think is really good. So I really like that. I think that's personally, I hope for that. I hope that it will be better than it was. A little bit of an in-person component, and or obviously the remote component as well for folks who want to take advantage of that. So very cool.
I could just tell you from some of my family in Barbados, they don't have the option to go to the night, right? So when it was online for free, I'm like, yo, guys, I know, because the one thing I found about the Caribbean islands, when COVID hit the Caribbean islands big, because most people in the U.S., you probably know from being in Texas, they go to the Caribbean islands. They go to Jamaica, they go to Barbados, Trinidad, you name it, right? They're there. But without the tourists coming there, a lot of these countries got hit financially, right? So I'm like, how can I help my family in the Caribbean islands, right? So I'm like, I'm good at tech. I know everyone doesn't like tech, but I use that as a way from like, hey, take a look at it. See if you might have any interest there, because you can already see jobs in Barbados that are looking for Azure engineers. And especially a lot of the ladies in my family, I'm like, they want more diversity in there, and they want some qualified ladies. So I can help you get certified to do that. And at least was able to watch the videos and say, you know what, Sly, I really don't want to do this. But they had a chance to look at it. And I had one like, I want to do it. How do I get started? I gave all the resources where to get started. And, she's gone through them, and we have like a month, like mentoring calls. So anytime I see like free training online, because the currency in Barbados is lower than America, right? Either I'm going to pay for it, or I find the free ones that she can go to. There's so many free webinars now that is like, and then YouTube University is like, you can just study for days. So you're right. I think the diversity and the inclusion is gonna, also raise the quality of hires we have in too. So
it's a thing, right? Because everywhere in the world now we're seeing this kind of great resignation, right? Everyone's looking everyone's hiring, everyone's kind of moving around, and finding good people is continues to be a challenge. So very cool. So I said I wanted to come back to this, and I think it's a good segue sort of to get back to kind of women in tech and your passion for that, right? I'm kind of, like I said, I'm always kind of struck by folks who kind of share that passion. And I've been following, obviously we follow each other on social media, and I've been seeing your sort of almost daily or probably daily posts at the moment for Women's History Month, right? There's been some really inspiring things that you've posted on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So, you mentioned earlier that this is something that kind of started within you when you were when you had your daughter. But that's that's the reason why you're so passionate about kind of promoting women in tech, and not that we need reasons, right? I think we're way beyond needing reasons at this point.
No, so for one thing for me is, so when I had my daughter, it forced me to look at myself and do self-reflection, right? Because I'm like, now when I'm having conversations with other women, young ladies, children, what if that was someone talking to my daughter? Would I approve of that? What have I done in the past? Has it been good? Has it not been good? Is it okay? It just gave me some time to myself to say, I want to make a change, right? And then for me I've always been good at creating platforms, right? I used to do open mic nights back in Buffalo when I'm in Buffalo when I was younger, for like artists, poetry. I do a lot of poetry. I started doing the tech stuff and getting people and doing training there and getting people on and doing interviews. And then, I'm like, all right, maybe I could do something for women in tech. Right. And then I'm like, you know what? It's kind of, people going to look like it because everyone is on allyship, and it's almost like a fad almost. Right. But people doing people who's in it. No, it's not. So I didn't want it to come off like that. So the first thing I did is went to the ladies in my life, my wife, my mom, one of my good friends, is like, how can I make a woman in tech show and be a guy on it, right? Because then isn't that kind of ironic, right? Like, why am I here, right? So the first thing they said, well, it's not about you. Making sure it's about the ladies there. And what's your why? Like, if you ever read a book, Simon Sinek, Find Your Why, love that book. And my why was, I want to make a world that is a little bit better for my daughter and other girls like her around the world. And then the women in there, they're already doing such an amazing job. How do I shine the light and amplify their voices, right? And then that's what I use my channel to do, right? Because it's not a big channel. About 3,700 people on YouTube, but then I got 6,000 followers on LinkedIn. I got people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? Use the skill sets to catapult their voices because they already did amazing things. So let me just share it. And hopefully with the end goal, the outcome I wanted is inspiring people around the world. And some people I don't know. Like some people I'll never know. But some people I already could tell you right now. I had 2 young ladies reach out to me. One was my cousin in Barbados who watched it and like, Sylvester, I loved everything about this. How do I get started? I connected her to one of the ladies that she saw. I gave her some information, and then I took the hands off and let the world do this thing. I had one lady who was like, Sly, I'm getting so underpaid. I just found out I'm like $30,000, $40,000 underpaid. She had the courage to negotiate because I connected her with one of the other ladies, right? To learn how to negotiate and then to ask for more. So on her next job, she got herself a 40% increase in her raise, and now she's on par. And that wasn't because of me. That was because of the ladies who shared the knowledge to show that there are ladies who negotiate. So here in America, and it might be different in Australia, there's a false narrative that women don't negotiate. There are facts that show that they make a little bit less, but I wanted to show the outliers, right? Because they're always outliers, right? And I meet the most ferocious negotiators I find are the ladies in my life, right? They're really good, right? So I wanted to show that element to say, yeah, might be the facts for yesterday, but not for the present and today. And let's change that. Let's make that less known. And then there's like, I could tell you a whole bunch of guys that are completely underpaid because they didn't ask for it. They expected to get what they wanted and didn't teach themselves the art of negotiation, right? So I wanted to share, and I found that men have found these things insightful too. They're like, one of my best friends, like, you know what, Sly, you're making me think different, right? And I'm like, that's fantastic. Let's talk about that, right? So those are the reason why I started it, and that's what keeps me doing it. Because people they can't tell me that I'm only in it for the clout, because to buy this mic, to buy all this stuff, I came out of my pocket. To run it, I got personal assistants. I pay for myself, and all the money I make from ads, I'm putting it back, and I'm gonna start a foundation, or I'm gonna give it to one of the things in Buffalo to help more women and people of color, right? Because those are the things that I'm passionate about. Because it's not about the money, right? It's about the impact. Because in the end of the day, I look at life as we're running a race. I used to run track, and I used to run relay. You got to pass that baton back. And when you pass that baton, you got to look it in clear so you can make sure the people behind you can take off running. And that's kind of my goal in life. And the cool thing about it is I'm finding so many allies along the way that's going to help me grow it to something that's beyond me. Because one day I don't want to even need to be a part of it. I just wanted to run and keep going. And then, and I'm done, right? It's not even about me, so that's kind of the end goal for me. And it's exciting, man. I get to learn so much. And what I always like to say, they're like, Sylvester, what do you get out of this, right? First, my wife likes what I'm doing. My daughter likes what I'm doing. So inside the house is good, right? They like what I'm doing. I love the person who I'm becoming and doing this. And also I get to meet these outstanding ladies that I would never have a shot to meet. I'm meeting CEOs, doctors, lawyers. I mean, not doctors, lawyers, but like senior techs, engineers, right? I get to get in rooms where I never was in the room before. And those are cool just to hear their stories and understand that. And I get to grow because I'm like, man, I want to be a better negotiator. Let me ask, Fallon Blossom how to do that. I want to be a better, now I can. I got a network to do it. So yes, those are the areas I use it, but it definitely comes from a place of, I'm a part of it, and whether I like it or not. And I should have been before, because I had sisters. I got a sister, I got my mom, I got all these people. Why wasn't I thinking about it for, right? But at least now I do. And then I wanted to make a change now. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing too, right? Is to not dwell on what could have been, but to look forward and look up and ahead and say, well, I can't change what's, the way I thought back then, but I can certainly start trying to, that personal growth, right? I can grow myself in these different areas kind of and look to the future for that. So very cool. So tell us about the book. You mentioned that you're busy editing your book. Tell us about that.
I got a book called Daddy's Little Girl. And when before I had my daughter, when my wife told me, she's pregnant and we found out it's a girl, and I'm sitting there like, man, I got a lot of feelings. Let me capture this, 'cause I used to write poetry back in the day, and I used to write it down, and I just started writing things that I would imagine to do with my daughter. And the cool thing is the stuff that I'm writing down, I'm living right now, which is pretty fantastic, right? So like in the book, I talk about changing my first diaper, and you think changing a diaper is horrible, but when your child is completely different, there's so much love there from doing it. So the terribleness of changing that diaper, but the happiness that you're feeling while you're doing it. Or like races, like me and my daughters went for a walk last night, and we was running back and forth, and she's winning, and she's having the time of her life. And I'm thinking about these are the things I'm going to be doing, right? And just writing how I would feel in it. Or then also, having a boy or having a girl, and then treating them the same, right? Not saying my son does this and you do this, like we doing it together. What would I experience with them? Like taking them to science museums. I just did that last week with my daughter. Had a great time, right? And then it's just I'm just sharing my dreams and a vision, and I'm capturing the perspective from a first-time dad. Right now, I'm a 2-time offender. I just had my son 6 weeks ago. Well, I didn't have my wife had my son 6 weeks ago, and it's different now, right? Because I've seen this story before, but I also learning so much now. So I'm actually writing it down because I can't treat my son as my daughter. They're two completely different human beings. I know that's obvious, but when you did it before, it's like even at work, when you accomplish something more, you try to take what you learned before and apply it to the new thing, but not realizing that new thing has new problems, new people, new experience, new outcomes, right? Same thing with my son, right? And this learning that, and then that helps me be better as me and Chris. We may disagree on certain things, but that makes sense. We have way different backgrounds. We're in 2 different continents. We're 2 different people. So to enjoy those conversations, like I don't run away from those conversations. And the best part about the book is I'm just talking about things that I know I'm going to run into, like how do you deal with your emotions? You get upset with your kids, you get angry, like sometimes, right? But you got to realize they're little kids, they don't know what they're doing, right? Like how do you have those? So just sharing those stories of being a first time dad, and you know, it's cool. The reason why it took so long to come out, man, because I'm so subconscious about my writing, man, you know. So it's like you put it out there, what's the reception going to be, you know? But now I got to the point where it's like I'm just going to put it out, because one of my goals I had, like, so one thing about me, I have like a list of things I got to do before I leave this earth, right? One of them was going to Europe. I did that. You know, one of them was finding my wife. I did that. One of them was writing a book, right, and publishing it and being a published author. That's one of my goals that I got to do. So I'm getting over my fear. I finally looked on Amazon. I'm writing up, getting it self-published, and I'm gonna get it out there soon. So as soon as I get it out, I'll let you know, Chris. And then and the cool thing is man, I already wrote a second book already. You already know. So I'm always writing, always creating. It's just something I love to do. And I do it I love to teach. It goes back to why I started Tech Simplified. I love to teach and I love to educate. That's one thing about me. When I learn something, I'm excited to teach you, Chris. And I'm excited when you learn something. I'm hoping you come back and like, Sly, well, what you said before was good, but did you know this now? I'm like, I didn't know that. Like, I love learning. That's like my tagline, always be learning. But I also love teaching, because that's how you know if you know it or not. And that's how you bring other people around you so your team is smart, right? So that's the long-winded story about Daddy's Little Girl, man. This just came from, again, self-reflection and vision. I'm always thinking about the future and how it's going to be and the world for my daughter, right? And what I would like that to be. And I figure I put my thoughts out there, because I'm realizing when I share the story, a lot of dads had the same story. So I'm like, hold up, why no one else wrote a book about this? You know, and there are a few of them out there. So I just figure I'll put it out there and share my story and share my unique perspective, you know? So.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to that, and be sure to let us know when that's out, so we can kind of help promote that as well. Get folks who are interested to get across it. So one of the things we like to do when we kind of finish up an episode is kind of give you a second to allow you to kind of plug or promote something. Right now, we've talked about the book, we've talked about Tech Simplified, but you know, if someone's listening and they're interested and they want to check out they want to check out Tech Simplified, how do they find you? What's the best avenue, the best social media? I think you've listed pretty much all of them, but how do folks get you?
I'm the most active is on YouTube. So if you go to Sly Gittens on Tech Simplified, there's literally like the name on the bottom here, or LinkedIn. Look up Sly Gittens. I'm on. I accept invitations all the time. I share a lot of information on there, and I respond a lot too. So not only I'm sharing, I'm responding. I encourage the conversation. And if you found this impactful, let me know. And if you're a dynamic lady that's in tech, let me know. I'd love to have you on my show, because my goal is to get to 100. And that's my first goal, to get to 100 stories shared. I'm up to 34. So I got a long way to go. And it's going to be fun. So those are the two areas I say, if you see me on LinkedIn or on YouTube, those are the two primary areas to contact me on. Of course, I'm on the other platforms, but I'm the most active on those two platforms.
Excellent. I'll be sure to share links to your profiles on LinkedIn and YouTube, just so that folks can kind of click through them from the show notes, you know, when we publish, so they can get to you really easily. But man, it's been I know it's kind of morning time for you, so you're just getting your day going. But man, it's been a fantastic conversation, and you know, I dare say that I think Nick and Warren have missed out, and they're likely going to be very, very upset that they weren't able to join the conversation as well. But what that does mean is that we'll just have to do it again sometime. So we'll just stay in touch. Part 2, we'll get you on again, and then just do a little bit more of the same. But really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, thank you so much.
I can tell you one last thing, man. My biggest thing is I'm coming out to Australia. That's on my bucket list, to get to Australia. So when I'm out in Australia, I'm gonna let you know what part I'm at, and you let me know. I got to go to Sydney. I got a few spots I need to go out in Australia and see. So when I'm coming out your way, I make sure to let you know. So
you let me know. We'll make sure that you have a tour guide to show you all the good spots. So Sweet. And the good beaches. Cool. Well, look, thank you again, and have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Chris. Thanks for having me on the show.
Cool.